Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Artists of the Way. I'm John, the host. Today, I suspiciously have my friend Nate Knobloch back with me. Basically, what's happening is he's held me captive, and I can't record podcasts anymore unless he's here, because he insists on being here.
Mm-hmm.
So
we'll talk about deep things.
And I hate talking about deep things.
Or you can't leave.
It sucks. It's a really bad situation. My work doesn't like it. It's unfortunate.
The house is caving in. That's what happens when you don't pay your mortgage. It caves in.
But I feel like there's a pun that I'm not getting.
Not that I knew.
No.
I just like that. Oh, can't pay the bills. The house is caving in. That's adulthood for you.
Money literally physically supports your household, or your house. Nate is joining us as the co-host for Artists of the Way. So we are doing a bit of a format change. Yeah.
Wow.
News to you.
This is something.
I know. I'm excited.
Me too.
The goal is, for format, we're still doing 2 episodes a month, and one will be just us, and then another one will be with a guest. So we're going to have a couple episodes coming up of Nate and I talking about some movies and things around those movies. We just recently watched 2 Oscar-nominated films that we each recommended to each other.
Important.
They are very important. This is an important podcast. Also, other note, you may hear some slight audio or see some visual differences. We're adjusting the studio, if you will, studio head quotes for my audio listeners. Because, I mean, it's not a full studio yet.
Come on over to YouTube and see the studio.
See the studio.
See the corner.
It's a corner now. More art will be ordaining this and ordaining? Is that right? We're going to have artworks that somehow are also priests. That's the intersection of faith and art. Right there. Art becomes a priest. This sounds blasphemous.
Wow, yeah.
Or, okay, hang on. Follow my train of thought here. Theologically, in some denominations, the priest is meant to be like an image of Christ, not in the sense of like, whoa, worship him, he's Christ, but in the sense of like, it can be a physical sort of example of Christ there in the Mass.
Right.
I don't know if I'm 100% on board with that, but in that way, then if you have an art that is reflecting Christ to you, then it would be a priest. So that's an argument you could make for it. I don't know if I buy it completely, but
you can make that, man. We'll see what the old Pope says about it. Old Popey.
We're gonna have him as a guest next episode. I don't know.
Pope?
Did you know that the
Philippe?
That's not the current Pope.
Louis.
Do you know the current Pope's name?
I do. It's...
You were close
Francis.
with one of them, Francis. Yep.
Yeah.
Good name, Francis. Good saint. He liked animals, and he protested the Crusades.
Oh, did he?
He did. I just found that out recently.
Because too many animals would die in it.
No, I think because too many humans would die in it.
He liked the humans, too.
He did like humans,
oh my.
too. He was a good saint.
Wow. What was his miracle? Did he talk to the animals, Dr. Dolittle style?
I don't know what his miracle was, but... Shay would probably know because that was her saint when she was confirmed. So,
right.
I've completely lost my train of thought now. We were talking about priests. We were talking about the Pope as a joke, and then
Pope's a joke.
Oh, that's not what I'm saying.
I will say.
Yes, but so we're going to talk about the wild robot.
He's going to ordain the wall. That was it.
That's right. Oh, because I was filling people in on what's happening with the art.
Yeah.
This is a chaotic episode, but that's fine. Yeah.
So new co-host.
Okay, get him out of here.
Get him out.
So yes, we're going to be visually. It will be more spectacular. Spectacular is a weird word for it, but it will be
a spectacle.
And you're hearing just some differences in the audio there. That's why. More spectacular.
They might not be hearing the differences.
Oh, that's true. They
may have not as good of ear. They could be a little deaf.
If your ear is not as attuned and sophisticated as mine. This is a great way to start the new podcast format, is just insulting our audience. I think it's wonderful.
Maybe they're just assuming that we're insulting insulting the other audience, not them.
Well, of course, we're not talking about you.
Not you.
Dear listener/viewer.
Philippe Jean-Claude. It's the other guys.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say.
Listening to us.
Pope John Paul II, who if I'm remembering right, was the Pope before Francis. He was also a playwright, I discovered recently.
No, Benedict was before Francis.
Oh, okay. Then he was before Benedict.
Yeah.
But he was also a playwright.
He was?
Yes. And so I want to find his plays and read them because that sounds really fascinating.
Or before poping?
I think during. I feel like he wrote something during poping.
What did he let go to go and write some plays? I wonder if they were good.
I hope so. That's why I want to look at them.
Yeah.
I mean, Catholics have a good track record with art, so.
Yeah.
And if it's the Pope, you can't let him. You can't let him slack, man. They got to be great.
Would it must have been awkward for his cardinals and stuff if they didn't like it. They're like, oh, yes,
there is something.
There's something there.
You are stating true things.
You're right. I can see you in it. A part of you.
A part of you. Not my favorite part.
Just one.
Not your best part, but there's part of you there. Yes, so we're going to chat over the next couple episodes about a couple of, at least individually, our favorite films of 2024. So one of them is my favorite film of 2024.
Oh, it was?
I think it was.
Wow.
We can talk more about that in the next episode.
The other one might be my favorite. If you know
I was hoping. I was like, if we could be talking
films of 2024 episodes.
Baby. I did this in 2023 too, so it's working out. Yeah. Look at that. Look at that. So. Yes, The Wild Robot.
Okay.
Are we going to do spoilers? We didn't talk about this ahead of time.
I think we should.
I think we should as well. So please,
spoilers.
Yes, for The Wild Robot at least, I would. Well, depending on your age, I would highly recommend both.
The other one, they're both very clean.
I think. Yeah, I don't think there's any content. Just the second one has more to grapple with. We'll talk more about that in the next episode, though. I need to not cross the streams, as the Ghostbusters would say.
Oh, did they say that?
Yeah, in the end of the first one. You haven't seen Ghostbusters?
No.
Wow.
I'm not Catholic. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't know.
I also like that it implies that I'm Catholic and do believe in ghosts.
You're the one defending the Pope and talking about ghosts.
I didn't defend the Pope. I just said I'm not going to say he's something. I don't know. I'm not going to insult
a bad artist.
No, I was joking about that. There was something else we were saying about it. I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought.
No, I'm just kidding. I hope he made good art too.
I hope he did.
Yeah.
It would suck if he made sucky art.
It was like him and Reagan and Margaret Thatcher that brought down the commies.
I didn't know he was involved in
that
war. I knew that he was part of the reform in the Catholic Church, the most recent council that happened was under him.
Was he? That was Vatican II. Mm-hmm. Was under him?
Yes, he was Vatican II.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm. That's so interesting because some Catholics that I like and follow don't really like Vatican II, but from what I've heard of it, sounds pretty nice.
There's a lot of sort of mixed reviews. Mixed reviews of
I saw that on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, Vatican II.
But Council of Nicaea also had mixed reviews, so it did because of just the filioque clause. I don't think that's how I pronounced that. Filioque. I don't think that's right.
You could have gotten filioque.
I don't know. The sun. This is getting too theological now. We need to swing it back.
Now, The Wild Robot.
The Wild Robot. Yes. So this was maybe your favorite. Yes, there will be spoilers, so please go watch it beforehand. It's streaming on Peacock. You can buy it. It's lovely. I think completely unobjectionable by anybody. I'd love to hear somebody try and object to it. If you have objections to it,
we would love to hear that.
Tell us, because I want to know. I'll say that I'll spit on their face on air, but in actuality, I'll probably try and have a calm discussion and try and find out what you're saying. Because I'm a coward.
That's behind the scenes. What's going on?
Yeah,
behind the scenes we talk nicely.
Yes, but on air we trash. We're like WWE. We have all this infighting, quote unquote. But then in actuality, we're just buddy.
Yeah,
but fake blood. You're fake blood. Fake blood on the podcast. Go. But yes, your favorite movie of 2024, potentially.
I don't remember what other movies came out, so yeah, this was definitely my favorite of 2024.
What did you love about it?
It was so beautiful.
It was. I loved the art. Some beautiful lighting and use of colors.
Yes. I feel for the past 20 plus years, animation has been largely had the Pixar look that they call it, so it looks like all the Pixar movies. It's kind of accurate to how physics works in the world, how lighting works in the world. And that's just how animated movies look. And then like did it start with like Into the Spider-Verse?
I think it probably started with Spider-Verse.
That they're like,
oh well, there's Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is the same producers as Spider-Verse people. I feel like has
Did that have some of that?
I feel like it has some of it,
but
I feel like they were playing around with it maybe then.
Spider-Verse
like really took it and matured it. Yeah,
because they're like. It's like, wait, we can still do art.
Right? Just because we're using computers doesn't mean that we need to be soulless. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Puss in Boots, was it The Last Wish?
The Last Wish.
It was doing some of that stuff. Kind of had that painted look, and the Wild Robot totally has that painted look while still being 3D animated. I feel like almost you could take a still shot of almost any frame and like hang it up on the wall. It's like framed like art, and like the background is just like not always very realistic, and sometimes we're just standing like in a tree of purple leaves all around us just because we know it's going to look beautiful. And so I really appreciated that.
I feel like animation has felt a lot like Marvel movies recently, which I love Marvel movies, but I feel like 8 or 9 times out of 10, like cinematography wise and as far as like that artistic side, you're usually not getting something amazing. Every once in a while you'll get like a great, beautifully composed shot, but most of the time it kind of feels like the director was hired just to do that job, and they are competent and they're excelling with the characters and they're excelling with some of the writing, but the visuals and that side of the medium is just getting the job done.
Right.
Whereas this did not feel like it was just getting the job done. It felt like it was... And not to say that all like of the Pixar-style animation has felt just like getting the job done. No, I love
Pixar, but this was something different,
But this was something different and new, and I agree with you. Like, I was just... Like, I felt swept away in it for a variety of reasons. But, I mean, the visuals especially, like, I was just sitting there and watching, and there's this moment where... Roz, the robot, is like finally gotten to the point where they are trying to return to the factory that they came from. And so they have their beacon going off, and just the way that they like rendered and designed the light going, and there's like this very hard circle around the light where like the light was cast. I was like, that's just an interesting visual that just looks very beautiful. It
was so thoughtful, like everything that they did. And like you said, like immersive.
Yeah.
I think the story was so immersive. How they started it. I want your perspective.
Yes. Let me, just in case people have decided not to heed our warnings and not watch The Wild Robot and instead listen to just us. Fools.
Well, it's good.
Let me give a little brief like summary of the premise, and then more will probably be revealed as we go. So there's
just tell how it starts.
There's the lightning storm. And then there's a robot.
That's right.
It's like
you don't know what's going on.
I know you don't. It's great. I think I knew the premise already, so I had some idea. But you are just really thrown into it, and like that first the first 15-20 minutes is just this robot like trying to survive, and it's just bonkers and crazy and hilarious.
Yeah.
There were like shades of Looney Tunes. I felt like in it too, which I was very happy with because I loved Looney Tunes growing up. But it was just, you were just thrown into this world and you're sort of discovering it with this robot because there's only, this robot's trapped on this island. There's only animals. So you are kind of discovering this world with the robot.
Yeah, because the robot is essentially born at the very beginning of the movie. And then you're kind of like born along with it, like into this movie. Because it feels very different than a normal movie, like even story-wise. So what is this world? What is this story? You're just finding it out along with the robot. Yeah,
the pacing was very interesting. And normally I'm a real stickler for pacing. I think pacing can make or break a movie. And oftentimes the sort of pacing that this movie had, I wouldn't normally like. Like I'd normally attribute it to a bad movie.
Really?
Where it just feels like things are just happening. Yes. But like the first 20 minutes, it felt like things were just happening, but it didn't feel bad or out of control. It felt like we were just kind of sweeping along and going. And occasionally I had a thought of like, this is moving really fast. But it established everything really elegantly, I thought, and planted us in quickly and efficiently. And just it took its time where it needed to take its time.
That's something that the restraint of these movie makers I thought was amazing. Because there was certain things about this world that you discovered, oh, this is kind of a post-apocalyptic world, but they didn't tell you the backstory to it.
No.
There's like little things you could infer, but they resisted going into, and here's how we got here.
Well, and I think some of that, excuse me, some of that could come from the author too in the book, and I think also the nature that it's a children's story, I think probably helps with that. Because children's stories, I think, even if they have more behind it that's sprawling, when you're aiming for that middle grade or younger age, you really just have to latch into the characters, I think, and get the kids to just enjoy the characters and the whimsy.
Even with the characters, though, wasn't it interesting that they didn't go into the backstory of like the fox?
Yes, no, I loved that. I think that was great.
Yeah, because he was like this. He was like a slightly troubled character that clearly, he's not been loved before, because that's kind of mentioned, and you expect to see the flashback or him telling, this is what happened with my family who didn't love me. But no, they just let it be just what it said, but you didn't need anything more. You understood what he was going through without needing the whole explainer. It was very much show, not tell.
Yeah, and a lot of less is more.
Yeah.
Where, just implying that, which a lot of great art has. I mean, even paintings, right? Like it's more. This is why I'm probably not good at paintings, because I'm not good at this discipline. When I'm trying to draw a picture or something like that, I'm implying something here as opposed to actually drawing it. Like you're implying a tree as opposed to painting a tree.
I have trouble with that too,
right?
Because I feel like if I'm doing my job as an artist well, I'm like getting all the details in there.
Right, it looks exactly like a tree.
Right, but this movie totally made me think about that, because like one of the first things you see is like a cliff wall that the robot has to figure out how to climb.
Loved that scene.
But it doesn't look like, it's not as detailed as like a real cliff wall would be, but yet it almost says more than it would if it was the complete accurate. And that just made me think about art, in that sometimes art is more realistic if it doesn't portray something factually realistic, because it can emphasize some of the soul of a thing, the way you experience it, by showing it, by taking away some details or highlighting some details. That's like why music is so important in movies. Usually, like, there's not music going in our everyday life, but a movie is like less real if it doesn't have music playing, because it that pulls the soul, which is like that's something that we experience.
Well, and that's part of the reason why we talked about it a couple episodes ago, but these sort of mythic tales or superhero stories or things, that's part of why I love them, because by extrapolating it from reality and putting it into sort of this hyper real world that is not a perfect one-to-one, where the family drama is that, like, I'm thinking about, as I was thinking about this movie today, I was thinking about Superman and Lois as well, which is a TV show I want to talk about sometime, which I'm probably going to talk about a little bit now. But here we go. I mean, it's 4 seasons, and it's one of just, I think, the most beautiful representations of a family I think I've seen in modern filmmaking today. And it's just a great way to reinvent the Superman character, which the comics have done. They've done that thing before too, so they're taking inspiration from the comics. But you're just experiencing this family life with teenage boys, and it's with Superman, but instead of it being like, this, dad is struggling to control his emotions, it's this dad is struggling to control his superpowers, right? And it sort of heightens it in a way, but then you're like, I can vibe with that. I understand where he's at with the family now, or it's like the threat to the family that they need to bind together is not losing the house. It's a giant monster that's going to kill the dad.
Yeah.
But there's that emotional truth in there where you don't have to get and I mean, stories can go as detailed and nuanced as that, but a lot of times art doesn't need to. And I think good theater does that too, where it implies what's going on in the blocking, in the set. Things are not perfectly realized.
Yeah.
But it's implied and immersive enough that you're like, okay, I can buy where we're at. I can relax in here into this and believe this world that is also a little hyper real because people are acting a bit larger than they do in normal life, and lights are changing colors, which I mean they can do in day-to-day life, but usually when you're singing, lights don't turn purple and start flashing and strobing.
No, but it feels like it does though. Like a couple nights ago, I went out with my wife, Ellie. It was like the first time we had a date night since before our son was born.
Yeah. And their new son, not their old son. It hasn't been 2 years since you guys have had a date.
It's been 2 years. Oh, no. No, yes. And he was only born a month ago.
Right.
But we went dancing. And which was just us trying to find a quiet spot in a corner of the mall and set up a speaker and just dance there. But it felt like so like magical, like something about music, like we talked about, gets that emotion, that magic feeling. Dancing just adds it to a next level, and then doing it with a person that you love is like heightens it even more. And so it's like, I think it looked probably strange from the security cameras, and in the end, someone had to tell us that our music was too loud and it was time to go home. But it was like a very like amazing, magical experience though, and that like it would have felt fitting to have like the lights changing and stuff like that, because that's the way I was feeling while it was happening, and so it's like appropriate when that happens in movies. I think that's why I love musicals so much.
I know, and I think that's a move in general. I think with art that I'm really enjoying in film in particular. I think film in like us growing up got really focused on the hyper real, which there is a place for that, but I think film is starting to get more comfortable with, we can play fast and loose with kind of what's going on here without breaking the suspension of disbelief or taking this seriously. Like there's even a series of shots in Conclave, which we'll talk about in a couple episodes, that I think about that too, where it just starts like listing the names of these Pope candidates, and it's just them alone in this voting room. And you're like, clearly they cannot all be the only ones left in this voting room, because there's only one of them in this voting room in each shot. But artistically, I love that moment to see, and particularly the last person it settles on is just wonderful for his emotional state and blah, blah, blah. But I feel like, I think giving ourselves the freedom to not have to be exact and precise and get more to the heart of the thing, which I think, I'm going to get theological now.
I was hoping we would.
I think there's a place for that theologically, where, and you could probably say that this is me trying to ease my heart or conscience or something as I navigate difficult situations, but I would say, like, I think trying to get towards the heart of what Jesus wanted and being okay to do that messily and not perfectly, but chasing after that instead, and trying to capture that as best you can, knowing you're not going to get it perfect, right? I mean, a very obvious example. Is that an obvious example I want to pull from? I'm not going to pull from that obvious example, but
I wonder what it was.
You probably know what it was if you think about it. I mean, there's areas that as Christians we have to walk through a lot, and people you have to work with. When you're, regardless of whether or not you're in ministry or not, as a Christian, you are ordained as a priest because we're a priesthood of believers. Even if you're not a shepherd of a church. And in that, we have a missional call to the world. And so we are very much, quite literally, dealing with people's lives. Regardless of your level of position in the church, you are dealing with people's lives. So there's a lot of weight there of, I'm being called by God to go out into the world, to make disciples of all nations, whatever that looks like, to baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which is a little more obvious what that looks like. Well, I mean, people
full
can
immersion.
debate that. It's full immersion, and they have to be infants.
That's the compromise we need.
Listen,
I'll give you your full immersion,
but it has to be a baby.
Only babies.
They're just easier to dunk in there. They're lighter.
We had baptism at my church yesterday, and there's a few kids, which was so sweet. But there was like a 7-year-old, and like my brother-in-law was sitting next to me, and he was like, "I just want to see the pastor," just like, because he was so little.
That is great. But we're being called to this missional life, which is inescapable for any Christian person, no matter how much a Christian person may try to ignore it. And what that looks like changes. But there is a weight of, I'm dealing with people's lives, and those come with all kinds of baggage towards Christ, towards the church, towards their own hang-ups and struggles. And oftentimes those put Christian people in positions of, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
A lot of times you're in a gray area where I'm like, I'm not sure what to do with this, or I really know what I believe, but I don't know how to navigate that.
Yeah.
But I think Jesus is big enough, and his grace is big enough to cover our small mistakes that we make in trying to follow the heart of Christ. And hopefully, no, not hopefully, his grace and presence is also big enough to use whatever we can give him in pursuit of the heart of Christ in other people, because that's not on us. He is, if we're going to map this like analogously to art, we are the painting or the lights in the musical that is trying to pursue this, and he is the actual emotion that is evoked. And we have not caused that. That is happening.
Right.
So in this, the difference is that the emotion is the more active participant that is both making the lights happen and also making the response in the person happen.
Yeah.
But he is the one that can use that. Even if maybe we picked magenta when we should have picked scarlet, you know? And it's not to say that's unimportant.
Right.
But we don't have to be like, oh, dang it, do I have the perfect shade of red for this situation? We can instead chase after that truthful heart of Christ and that truthful response and trust him to guide and direct us and use that because it's him doing the work.
Yeah. I think that goes along with something that I've been trying to learn and live out lately, the idea of like living by the Spirit and trusting him to enable you to be the good and loving person that he wants you to be, rather than trying to like force yourself to be the good and loving thing and coming at it out of your own effort, and that so often then doesn't actually manifest love towards someone else. But I've stressed about that. It's like, well, if I don't try to do the good thing, then I might just not do the good thing. But the truth is that if like I ask Christ to inspire me to do the loving thing, he does help me, give me the heart to do it with a willing and loving heart. And that comes from him then, and then it is taken as a thing of love, and it's given as a thing of love, and doesn't create bitterness in me because I have to do this thing for you and do the right loving thing, but I want to because I'm not doing it just like out of obligation. Right. But it's that living by the Spirit. It's not like a law paint by numbers thing. It's very much murky in that he has to just guide us moment by moment on what he's having us do, because he wants relationship. Yeah. I feel like I want to bring up conclave, but we're not talking about conclave. But I feel like a lot of this maps to conclave really well. Busting. I know. Busting out of his skin. Should I just bring up conclave? I don't know. Let's see what else we can draw out of Don't let me forget that Tune moment. In next time to that moment. Remind me somehow. I'm going to grab my phone. Stall the audience. Hey guys, You ever wonder about what bed you should use? Well, we are now sponsored by...
We're not sponsored by anybody. No, legally, we are not sponsored by anybody. No.
Pick your letter.
Don't listen to Nate. We have no affiliation with Sleep Number. Is that what you said?
Sleep Letter.
Oh, Sleep Letter.
Yeah.
Oh, you're making a pun. Okay, good.
Hopefully it'll end in Z. Lots of Z's.
This is our intermission in the podcast. Okay, there we go, and I'm going to set that there. So tune in next time to hear us pick up a little bit more of that thread, because I think it connects to Conclave and connects to some things that I've been struggling with. Hang on. I'm going to get raw and honest with our podcast audience. Okay. Wild Robot.
Yeah.
I also really liked the music, and I don't have any great theological themes to pull out of the music, but I'm like, I need to watch this composer now, because it had some music that
Who was it?
What was the name? It's Chris something. I was just listening to it in the car. It struck me. It was very beautiful. It was sort of, it wasn't simplistic. It reused a lot of like motifs throughout, but that's good in a score. Chris Bowers.
All right.
It's Chris with a K, so now I'm curious
Whoa.
if it is a he Chris or a she Chris. It's a he Chris.
Mr. Chris.
Figured it out, Mr. Chris. He Chris. No, it was just really lovely. It used the strings, which I always love, because I'm a string so boy. I'm like loving to hear that string.
Yeah,
it was just great, very stirring, good layers. If you like film scores, check out the Wild Robots film score, because it's very lovely.
What did you think of the portrayal of motherhood?
I liked it. It was
just to catch the audience.
Oh yes, because we've fallen off of our.
This
synopsis.
Robot is created to help people with tasks, and nobody on this island of animals that he shipwrecked on has a task
that she's shipwrecked on.
She's shipwrecked on. She the robot.
Yes.
But while being chased by a bear, she accidentally crushes a bunch of geese. Which
was another great moment where they really were comfortable spending time in that moment, which was just really great.
Yeah.
And
wasn't it also interesting, side note, how they were how they portrayed animal peril kind of accurately, especially in the first half?
Mm-hmm. They were very comfortable with death.
Yes.
That
was very interesting. Mm-hmm. Like,
kids' movies need to be more comfortable with death in general.
You think so?
Yes, I think kids are fine to learn about death from an early age. Personally,
yeah,
that's a controversial opinion, but I don't know. I think kids can handle a lot more than adults. Sometimes give them credit for when it comes to themes. So, but I appreciated that. I was like,
they even made jokes about it too.
I know.
They had like dark humor.
It was really funny.
With like, we die out here in the wild. That's just how it is.
Yep. Everybody's hanging out in this house together, and you're like, in 5 minutes they're going to be killing each other.
Yeah. At that point, and like kind of towards the end, some of the cartoon logic kind of had to take over. But anyway,
hang on, cartoon logic or eschatological logic?
Go on.
Because what is it in Isaiah where the lion and the lamb will sleep together?
Right.
There was good shades of that. I'm like watching this, and I'm like, this is just going to be what eternity's like.
That's true.
I'm going to get to hang out with Mark Hamill as a bear.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
God, if I don't get up to the heavens or new earth, that fits my theology a little better, and don't hear a bear sounding exactly like Mark Hamill doing a weird voice. He was a good
bear.
He was a good bear. He's just a great actor.
Yeah.
He just pops up in all kinds of things.
Anyway, so these geese died.
These geese died.
But there's an egg left, and it becomes the robot's task to basically raise this little gosling. He's so cute to be able to leave the island to eat, swim, and fly away. So that was its task, and so she became a mother figure. But it was interesting, though, because she's just programmed to get the job done and stuff like that, but she was learning that my programming is insufficient to do this mothering stuff, because it's just, I don't know what to do. It's all murky. Yep. There's like no roadmap for this, and so you come to find out that
murkiness is rising as a common theme in our discussion.
Okay,
and maybe in our next discussion.
Good.
Anyways, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
You're good. But it was interesting where she said that she had to overwrite her code in order to take care of this child, to actually complete the task. And it was my wife Ellie who thought that was a really interesting concept of going against your hardwired code to do the greater good. Because I think, like, you might agree, in culture we're told a lot to live your truth, live what you are, like, including like just your background caused you to have these problems and stuff like that. But sometimes we just have to overwrite our code to do the good thing, to take care of people.
Yeah. No, I was very struck by that, because we are very, I think our culture has tended to be very, this is your nature, you have to stick to it. I've definitely seen parts of our culture where it's like trying to move away from, I mean, a lot of like the counseling stuff, there's one side of it that's just like embrace completely who you are and cut out anybody who's like going against that. But I think probably the less loud but more mainstream is we want to improve ourselves so we can be better for the people we love. And a lot of that sort of same things, like whenever I'm going to counseling, that's what I'm working through. I'm doing that now leading up to the baby, of like, there's things in me that are, either struggles I have or things I'm concerned about or things that could be bad, and that I'm like, I want to work through this by the time I have this child to take care of, or for my wife, or for, the rest of my family. But
it's like there's this mini law inside you because of your background that may make you have a proclivity to something that you don't like. But there's a greater law that you've surrendered yourself to that's you're striving to overcome, the lesser law.
Yeah, and it does take work and effort, but then also we have Christ helping us in that. But there is an effort there. I found that theme very interesting. It was interesting watching it because I'm not a parent yet, but now I'm about to be a parent, and so I think this was the first time watching a movie that I was like, it feels like the character in this scenario that I would most identify with is the mom.
Yeah.
But I'm not quite there yet, so I didn't quite find myself identifying perfectly with the characters, which was weird.
You will more and more. There's just like there's no like rule book of how to do this.
It was I don't know, it was weird, I guess, for that reason, because I was like, it feels like I'm on the verge of like really being in all this, but right now I'm more just watching it and I'm intellectually like, yes, I know that this is all the things that are coming. I mean, I was invested and I got emotional and like like a single
tear came out?
Yeah, a couple times.
Wow.
There's probably like 3 or 4 tears. Some of that was the music. I loved the music. I don't know. Yeah, I guess maybe I just I think I expected the parent theme to resonate with me, or just hit me deeper, maybe more than it did, and maybe I'm just tired. I mean, we did do a double feature, so that could also be part of it. But yeah, I don't know. Like it did hit me. It was great. I want to watch it again.
Yeah.
I don't know. I expected to be hit with it more.
That's okay.
But that's more my own expectation than the movie itself. I thought it portrayed it really wonderfully.
Yeah.
I loved. This is another commonality, I think, between both of the movies we're talking about in these next couple episodes, but I think it portrayed something that is not usually portrayed in a positive light, in a very positive light.
What's that?
Which is parenthood. I don't think it's not that our culture doesn't value parenthood. I think it does, but I don't think it talks about valuing it and treating it as a good thing as much as it should. Even though I think maybe it means it that much. Like I think our culture and like people in the world do value it that much. But
I think that this kind of let us be able to show a parent that wasn't perfect. Like some of our parents, maybe all of our parents,
probably
weren't perfect.
Yeah.
But it lets you like see that parent through eyes of grace.
Right. And still overall being like a positive, good thing.
Yeah.
And this was I think what struck me is it wasn't just good for her child, it was good for her.
Oh yeah.
That I think was more the thing that struck me of a lot of times. Like you'll hear about like, oh, you're not going to know a love like that before or something like that. But usually it's just this sort of portrait of how much this is going to destroy your life and rob you of like happiness and freedom and all of that.
Right.
Which I mean, the movie joked about at certain points.
Yeah.
I mean, I assume I'm not speaking from experience. I'm speaking from like secondhand experience seeing friends. Like there is limits that get placed around that and some responsibilities that are there, obviously, that can weigh heavy.
Yeah.
But it's still a good thing.
Right.
And so I really enjoyed that it was
worth making.
Yeah. And so I really enjoyed, and also and I think this is true, you don't necessarily have to sacrifice who you are in order to be a parent. And I think the movie did that quite well, where Roz is certainly a parent and doing overall, I would say, a good job at being a parent, even though she has her failings at points, but also is still very much who she is and has the opportunity to go on her own journey of self-discovery, to do work outside of just being a parent, but she can also still fulfill and be a parent 100%.
Right.
But doesn't have to sacrifice everything else for that. Like, I feel like the world paints it as it's all or nothing. When you get a kid, that's everything. And not in a beautiful way, but in a, well, your life's over way.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It is, and it is like a top priority.
Yeah, because it's like, it's a part, the part of you that will be a parent is a real part of you that's just waiting to be unlocked. Mm-hmm. That's going to open up a new room in the house of your life, as it were. Mm-hmm. And so your life will be, you can have maybe more focus times in these rooms, like where you grew up doing your thing, but it's a smaller world. And this other part of you is just as much you and deserves to be unlocked and given great life and growth. And it's just, of course, one of those things that just takes a lot of sacrifice and dying to self, and that's like great recipe for sanctification there.
Yes, but those rooms also are still rooms of the same house. It's not like you're moving to a new house that is, well, now I'm the parent house. Right. I assume maybe in 6 months I'll come back and be like, I was all wrong. I'm ending this podcast. I was wrong. Everything's ending.
No, because if God made good things in you that are in those other rooms, He doesn't just jettison that creation.
And I love that. Like, Roz is a parent, but Roz also is all these other good things. She is a hospitable force and like a sort of heroic savior type for these people here, and like a unifying force for these animals on this island. And eventually goes off and is, well, this is a big spoiler, this is the very, very end, but like goes off and is like, I think I have a mission now to this dystopian humanity and to reach them too. And so she is embracing entirely who she was made to be, which also includes being a parent, which she embraces fully.
And which can work part of that is letting go of your kids.
That's
and stuff
true.
Too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did you think of the whole like the heart being the center of the person that like no one can like get at and destroy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That part seemed more basic to me, I guess. It didn't prod my thoughts a whole lot. Yeah,
I think that it was interesting to me because I think that could have felt really kind of cliche.
Yes.
And that, oh yes, it's just all heart and love and stuff, and then the heart is some mystical kind of thing. But it kind of made me think, yeah, I think maybe the heart and love is some kind of mystical thing.
Okay, yes, in that sense, yeah, I do agree. Yes, I think that could definitely have been very cliche. I was struck by how well this sort of mysterious emotional side worked with this robot, and that we did just buy it.
Yeah.
If you're a real grump, you probably can get annoyed
right.
at it and nitpick.
There's no circuitry for that.
Right. How does she remember him when her memory is wiped?
Yeah.
But I think, and it's probably some of that like hyper real stuff we were talking about too.
Yeah.
It sets up the story in such a way that it can just embrace the mystery of that.
And we know stories about this of people with dementia who can still connect with something in their past and in their heart with like people that they love, even if they don't remember exactly who they are. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I thought it was well done. Yeah. It didn't prod new thoughts, but I thought it was very well done, and I was impressed with how well that type of plot worked in this setting, where you easily could have screwed it up, or done it not super amazingly. Like there's a movie Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams, which I have a soft spot for, but is kind of it's kind of at a lot of these same ideas of like emotion with, and like sci-fi ideas that is, of like emotion with robots and are they human and stuff. Well, and I mean, are robots human or not is like a classic sci-fi thing for ages, and so there's more examples of it being done badly than there are of it being done good. So it's very easy to mess up the like robots getting emotions plot line and either make it too heavy-handed or make it not make sense.
I thought this was like clearly we're not too concerned about the sci-fi of it. This robot is just a metaphor for a mother.
Right, and that just worked with it. Yeah. I thought it worked really beautifully together.
I thought it was interesting how, to me, you were in this like harsh nature world, but the scariest part was when the sterile dystopian human world manifested by these robots came. That was the scariest part.
Yeah, which I think probably resonates with a lot of cultural fears, I suppose, we have of the moment. I mean, there's all the questions around global warming or an economic crisis, whether or not you believe in that. I
don't believe in economics.
You don't?
No.
Well, shoot. Sorry, give me your money. It'll be fine. Oh, dang it. No. I guess that was supply and demand, wasn't it?
What do you mean?
Because I demanded your money and there would have been a supply of your money, but then there was no supply of your money.
Supply.
And so it's falling apart. You're seeing economics right before you, Nate. Believe. But I think there are a lot of like cultural fears of like, are we destroying our planet for this horrible dystopian world,
and then of course like fears of like the AI.
Oh yeah,
stuff.
AI
and,
too
like,
terrifies me.
And very much like it's inferred that like bless you.
Thank you. I'm just gonna die. That's why we got Nate on.
I'm the transitional episode.
This is the transition as I die.
But it was inferred that in this human world, these robots take care of like so much of your needs. But it was very much of you got the idea of a government or system that can take care of you, can so easily take you out.
Right.
Too.
Yeah. It's and that thematically is interesting for me on a theological level because I'm gonna die. Oh gosh. I'm gonna die or get the hiccups. We'll see which one comes first.
It'd be funny if you died, then you got the hiccups.
Gives me vibes of Gimli. He's twitching because he's got my axe embedded in his nervous system. Because in one sense, there is this great governing force that does provide for all of our needs, and that's God. But then on another sense,
we can trust him, though.
We can trust him. That's true. That's great because he's not, well, he is fully human, but he's also fully God, which helps.
True.
I'm sorry for the unpleasant listening experience of me with hiccups.
You're good.
Excuse me. So in one sense, it's like, that is kind of what we're looking forward to eventually is a great city coming down with God ruling it forever and it will be perfect.
Right.
But also in another sense, he built us to be in symbiosis, for lack of a better word. No, maybe that is the right word. Symbiosis.
For lack of no better word.
For lack of no better word, because this is what I mean to say. he built us to be in symbiosis with creation, and we are given dominion over it. But I think, now I could get into a big theological thing, but really leadership in Scripture usually denotes stewardship and serving that thing to help it reach its fullest potential and be healthy. And that does come with some authority, but mostly it comes with responsibility. But also in doing that, in functioning.
Well, guess what word you're going to say.
Comment down below what you think the heck this sentence was, because who knows? Oh, gosh. In functioning that way, which I think currently in our modern world we are not. You could probably argue that we haven't been for however long, but I think we've worked better with our planet and creation around us in other times. In doing that, much of our needs are met both emotionally and spiritually, even as God is sort of ordaining it. You know, I do think there is something to the society we've built in America, and then looking at the depression rates and being like, well, why is that? We do have a society where a lot of our needs are met, where it's very modern, where we have very much taken control of the earth. Yeah. I think to too much of a degree personally, but that's my personal stance.
Whereas you can go to like some tribes in Africa and they're not depressed at all.
Right.
They're just working to live. Right. Which sounds hard, but they're not depressed.
But they're not depressed, right. And there's give and take. Like we have we can be creating this podcast and having these conversations and creating beautiful theater. I
like that.
I like that a lot too. I think God planted me here and not in a tribe in Africa for a reason.
Don't ruin his plan. Stay here.
No, I gotta go be a missionary. It's the only way I can be of use to the church. But what was I even saying anymore? Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a both and to that. But I think right now in America, the bad part that we are seeing is that we have tried to over control the earth and take God's position take God's position of governing our circumstances. And I think people, Christian or not, are waking up to that and are like, we kind of have created a terrifying situation for ourselves. Now we just get to see it play out.
Yeah. But God of the system, kind of, and the environment.
Which is probably why we're seeing so much like post-apocalyptic fiction. Like, this is not the first terrifying post-apocalyptic thing.
Yeah, like what if this God we created dies?
Right, and I mean, you've got Hunger Games too, where it's like there's just so much. Yeah, there's so many stories in this vein of like we've created this system that we are so reliant on now that rules our life, and this is, for as best we know, the only things that we can rely on. What happens if that crumbles? Or you could get into like sci-fi like Dune, where it's like, what happens if that's a horrible system that is doing terrible things, you know? Or Ender's Game is similar to that too.
Whereas we see in the Bible, we see God putting systems in place for us to rely on him.
Right.
He puts the Sabbath. So don't work, you're just going to trust me to take care of you today. Or like the year of Jubilee kind of thing, like don't like, or was it not, or I'm thinking of like when they came into the land and they just kind of let it like be for like a year.
It's every 7 years they would just let it rest.
There you go.
I think the year of Jubilee was a rarer thing, if I'm remembering
50 years, right. I think, something like that.
50 or 60, I believe. I have a degree in ministry leadership. I should know these things. But yeah,
that idea of you don't need to work the land to its utmost because you're going to trust me.
Right.
I'm going to take care of you.
And we were talking off air about the story of Joseph and the economic system in Joseph. And
off air.
We were talking off air the other day. Excuse me.
We're making them think we're friends off air. People like that.
They do like that. Yeah. I can't wait to get out of here. I don't like you.
All right. Normal voice level?
Yes.
The other day when we were hanging out.
Yes, as friends do. we were talking about how Joseph basically institutes socialism in Egypt, and my stance on that was a little more positive than your stance on that. But that was a weird thing for me to read and see socialism in the Bible not just blow everything up, because I'm not very pro-socialist. Still, I don't think it's a great economic system. But I think the bigger issue is, are you relying on the system or are you relying on God?
Yeah, that's a bigger
because
thing.
I think even over-reliance... Well, I mean, we're in a capitalist society.
Yeah.
So we can see how an over-reliance on capitalism can harm things. We can also see in many other countries where over-reliance on communism or socialism or all these different economic systems crumble down, and it's really more, is this system submitted to God? And is he the authority of that? Because imagine if God was just like, hey, I'm just going to give you bread every day, and you don't have to work for bread. That seems fine if it's God. Right. Once it's the government, it's a little more scary.
Don't trust those
but once
guys.
God is like, hey, I have these people, and they're going to give you bread every day, I'm like, sign me up. I love bread so much.
That would work great for you.
Is communion just socialism?
Whoa. Got grape juice.
Does. Or wine.
Yeah.
But there are bread lines. Body of Christ lines.
No, it makes me think of, I read Revelation, like Revolution.
Revolution. I don't remember that.
The Book of Revolution.
Is that in the New American Bible?
Yeah. American flag on the cover.
Yeah.
The Book of Revelation and how there's like these judgments and stuff that come against like greedy and warnings against like greedy lands, greedy countries and stuff, and it's like, we don't want to be that.
Yeah,
we might be that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, a lot of times reading Revelation, I'm like, are we the bad guys?
Are we the baddies?
Yeah. Which I've had that thought outside of reading Revelation as well, but yeah, I think reading scripture a lot of times I'm like, we're really poised to be an empire here. We probably are an empire, just not in so many words. Yeah. But, yeah, no, I thought that was an interesting dichotomy in the film, though, seeing the system that hasn't worked. I mean, as far as people know it's worked, but they don't know that it's broken, and that it's destroying their lives. Mm-hmm. And then you see sort of, probably unintentionally, I don't know, maybe the filmmakers intended this and are secretly Christian, but this sort of beautiful eschatological unity, even in the face of all this danger on this island, that crosses these barriers and brings together all these different people that should be murdering each other, and yet they come together and form this beautiful community and kingdom. Yeah,
they're gonna eventually have to eat each other, though, right?
No, it's eschatological, Nate. Embrace the hope and joy. Don't need to get cynical.
Did their digestive tracts change so the bears can eat grass?
Maybe.
Wow.
God can do that.
He can do that.
Yeah.
Wow. Pretty good.
So that was The Wild Robot.
Yeah. That was good.
It was a good movie.
Really liked that.
If you have
Send
children,
it to your friends.
Send it to your friends. Tell them to sign up for Peacock, the streaming service that probably nobody has.
It's pretty good.
It is a surprisingly good streaming service.
Surprisingly good streaming service.
Mm-hmm. It was really bad model when they launched it, and I mean it was Peacock was a little bit of the laughing stock of the streaming service for a little while, but I think it's getting on its feet.
I'm liking it.
Yeah. But yes, check out The Wild Robot. It was lovely.
Yeah, beautiful.
That's our recommended resource. I don't know if we're going to have recommended resources when it's just you and me, because they'll get tired of me.
We'll just say the same thing every week.
I know. I'm like, you don't need to hear me talk about Meisner or Andrew Peterson or the Book of Common Prayer that much. You already hear about it.
I could take a turn. I could talk about the Book of Common Prayer.
Talk about the Book of Common Prayer.
I've never read it.
Oh, you should read it.
I could make it up.
Dave, there's such beautiful prayers in the Book of Common Prayer.
Sounds like it.
I should lend you one.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Cool.
Okay. Sweet. Thank you guys for joining us. If you have feedback about this new co-hosting thing or this
angry
model,
comments,
tell us how much you hate me and want Nate to host exclusively.
That's not what I was expecting.
But yes, let us know if you're liking it. Thank you guys for listening. Again, I'm just always so...
Looking at you, Jeff.
So grateful. Is there a Jeff that listens? I don't know.
Might be.
There could be somewhere. But yes, I'm just so appreciative of you guys and this cool community that is Artists of the Way, and the audience that tunes in. So thank you guys. And God bless and have a great week.
Bye.